Most. Okay, hello. Sorry for starting late the stream. So we just started the live coding. So you just missed the introduction. Sorry for that. And let's jump into. Okay. So here we want to add some items to cart. So first of all, we want a cart. So we want to create a new cart. Okay, that's for the start. If we run our test suite, of course we get an error because the cart class doesn't exist yet. So let's create that. New PHP class. The name should be cart. The name should be up. Okay. Let's import that class here. And now if we run it, we have a risky test. So it passes basically, but it doesn't assert anything. So that's why it's risky. Okay, so let's add something else to it. So cart, add item. We want to add a name for our thing, probably a pizza. We want a code for it. Let's call it P001. We want to add the quantity, for example, 1. And we want to add the price. So let's be 1,000 dinars. And I will use integers here because the best practice is to store and use money values in integer and in the smallest subunits of the currency, for example, cents. Because PHP is not very good at floating point math, so it could cause some trouble for us. So if we run our test suite, of course, it's an error. So let's create our method. So public function add item. We want string name. We want to have the code. We want to have an integer like the quantity. And we want to have another integer for the price. Okay. So now if we run our tests, then it will be fine, but it's again risky. So let's do the next step. So let's assert count that we have one item in our cart. And we will use get items method, which doesn't exist again, but we will do it right now. So we have a failing test. We add our items that be protected items, empty array, and let's PHP Storm generate a getter for that. Okay, so we now have get items. If we run the test, now it fails because we don't have anything basically in the items. So let's do this. Let's make this test pass. So this items, okay. Okay, so name is the name, code is code, quantity, and the price. Okay, let's see if that worked. Yeah, it did. We can assert, but with this, we only assert that we added something. We have something in that array. So we can add some more assertion here. So assert equals pizza as the cart get items 0 name. Okay, let's see if that works. Yeah, that works. Now we have one test and we have two assertions in it. So we have a cart, we can add items to cart. Probably we want to remove items from the cart as well. Let's create another test for this. Test. And I want to mention that either we need to have the test in the test method's name, or we can add like an annotation in dogblock at test. Otherwise, the PHPUnit won't run our methods as test. So we will use the prefix now. It can remove items from cart. Okay, so now we want a cart. Let's copy that. And we want to add something to the cart. And now we want to remove item. And probably we want to remove the item by the code. So we will pass the code here and to remove that pizza from our cart. If we run this, it will error out again because we don't have that method. So let's create that. So public function remove item, and we expect a string here, the code. And let's see, let's do a for each loop through our items. Let's index item and say if item code equals the code we passed, then we want to unset this items index. Basically, we remove it from here, and we can basically return not here, but once we found the item, we can return, and we don't want to loop through the whole items array because we already found what we want to remove. So let's see if that worked. Okay, so now it works, but it's risky because we don't have any assertion. So let's assert that we don't have anything in the cart. Assert count 0 cart get items. Okay. Okay, it works. Now let's make our cart a bit smarter, because what we do now, we're just adding the items, we're just basically adding the items to the array. What if we add the same item twice? Then we want to just increase the quantity within the cart. We don't want to add the same product twice. So let's do this. Test, it increases the quantity when adding multiple items. Okay, so let's do this. Same thing, we want to add the item, and we add it once more, and we want to assert here, assert count, that we have only one item in our cart. Get items is 1, so let's run this. Okay, so it fails because obviously it's 2 items in the items array. So let's fix that. In the add item, we will do a for each again. These items as index item, and let's check if the items code is the same, but we want to add, right? Then we will just do this items index and increase the quantity with the given quantity, right? And if we did this, we want to return, because otherwise we will add the item again. So let's see if that worked. It, obviously not, because something is not right. Ah, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Quantity. Okay. Yeah, now it works. Cool. So let's do the same thing with the remover. So public function test, it decreases the quantity and moving item, for example. Okay, so let's add let's add an item here. Okay, and let's then remove it. Move item P001, and then assert this assert, and we probably want to add 2 pizzas in this case. So assert equals that it's 1, this get item, not this, but cart get items 0 quantity, and it should fail, I guess. Yeah, because undefined array key, because our remove item method just removed the complete item, not just decrease the quantity. So let's do this. So here, if we merge the code, let's do this instead of unsetting it. Let's do this items index and quantity minus minus. Okay, let's see if it works. We can run from the PHPUnit, we can run a single test by clicking here. So we will do this. And yeah, it's okay. One test, one assertion, it worked. But let's run our whole test suite now. And oops, we introduced a bug. We have a failing test. Let's check that. The test, it can remove items from cart. It asserts that if we remove the item, it's no longer in the get items if we only have one of them. So let's fix that. So let's see, if we found the code, we decrease the quantity, but only if this, basically, if item quantity is bigger than 1, then we do this. Otherwise, we do the same thing that we did before. We unset this items index. And let's see if all our tests are happy about this. Yes, it seems so. So, okay. So we can now add items to cart. We can remove items from cart, but we want a total to show on the cart, what is the total amount. So let's do this. We want a new test for it. So it's public function test. It can calculate total. Okay. We want a new cart. We want item here. And let's add something else. Let's add some beer to it. B. So 2 pizzas and 2 beers. Let that be 150 dinars. And we want to assert equals. And how much is 2,300 dinars? This, not now this, cart get total. Okay, let's run this test. You can run it by Control-Shift-R and just a single call to undefined method, cart get total. So, don't have the method, let's create it. So we do public function get total. And now we do the simplest way. So total equals 0 for each these items as item. And let's the total plus equals item quantity times item price. Okay, let's return the total. Let's see if that works. We can run the. Okay, this passes. So now let's see how we can refactor this, because it's the simplest implementation. It works. Now we know that it works. Let's change that a little bit. So instead of doing a for each, we can do return array reduce. We will give it the array. These items, we will give them callback function. And the first argument would be the total. And the second argument would be the item. And what we do here, we do the same thing. We just add all the items quantity times price. So let's see if that works. So it can calculate total. We run this and it works. So now we did refactoring without breaking anything, and we can make sure that we can delete this code because our other code works as well. So let's see one more example how we can test for errors. We can do that. I will show you how. So if we want to test, for example, we want to remove something from the cart which doesn't exist in the cart. Actually, we want to throw an exception in that case to show some error or handle that somehow. So let's do a test for it. So public function test, it throws exception when removing non-existing item. Let's fix this. These typos. Okay. Let's see how to do this. We will have like cart. We add something to the cart. If we don't have to, but let's have something in there. And let's call the cart remove item with a non-existing code. And if we run this test, it should run. It's risky because it doesn't do anything, but we want to have an exception in this case. So in the beginning of the test, or actually before the code throwing an exception, it's important that we do it before. So this expect exception, like we accept a logic exception, for example. And now if we run our test, it fails because failing that we assert that we will have an exception, and we don't have an exception actually. So let's add that to our cart. So basically the remove item works if it finds the item, it decreases the quantity, or it unsets the item. So basically, and we can do a return here as well. So basically, if we are after the for each, we are sure that we didn't find the specific item, either multiple of them or one of them, so we can throw the exception here. So throw new logic exception, item not found in cart, code equals code. Okay, let's see if that worked. Yeah, it did. So that's how we can assert that we are expecting an exception in some cases. Okay, so let's see another example. Let's port our code, our card to a Laravel project and do the rest with Laravel. Okay, so we have another project here. That's a basic Laravel installation. Nothing has been done here. And we can see it already comes with a PHPUnit XML. It's similar to ours that we used. It has two test suites, one for the unit tests and one for the feature test. So let's copy our code here. So our cart should live in the app. Okay, and we can even copy our test because it should work here as well. Let's put it the unit tests. Okay, in Laravel we can run the test via PHP artisan, so we can do PHP artisan test, and it will run all the tests which are configured. It has a nicer output than the plain PHPUnit, and we see that all our tests passes. So let's implement the endpoints for manipulating the cart using our cart class here. So what we can do here, I will reuse this example test. Let's rename it to cart controller test. Okay. And in the beginning, I forgot that we can do a presentation mode. Probably it's better visible, especially for our YouTube users. I always forget our YouTube users. It's my first time streaming, so sorry about that. Okay, so let's see our structure and our console. So we have cart controller test. It does a simple thing. It will make sure that our home page works. We can run this. It should work. Yeah, it works. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Let's do the add items, but now through HTTP test. So public function test, it can add items to cart. Okay. We will do this post. We want to post to the /cart/add endpoint, and we want to pass some data, right? And the data can be same thing that we had before. So we want the pizza. We add the code for it, P001, right? And we add the quantity 1, and come on. And we want price like 1,000 dinars. Okay, So now we have a simple test, and we want to assert that it returns an OK response. Let's run this. If you run this, obviously it's not returning 200 because that endpoint doesn't exist, even the controller doesn't exist. So we will create it. We go routes/web, and we define a route for a post, and we defined it as cart/add, and we want a controller here, so we will ask Laravel for help. PHP artisan make controller cart controller. Okay, it doesn't work because that's broken. Let's do it again. Okay, now it worked. So we want to use our newly created cart controller, and we want to name the method store. Okay. So let's go to the cart controller and create the method public function store. Okay. Now we have the method, we have the route. Let's go back to our test and see if this works. It works, but it doesn't do anything, right? Yeah. So, as we want the cart to remain between the sessions, we'll do a trick. Probably it's not the best case. I wouldn't do this in a production, but for now, let's do this trick here, that we have a constructor here, and we check if session has cart. Basically, if it doesn't have, then let's do session put cart and up cart. So basically, we initialize an empty cart here if it doesn't exist. If it exists, we don't do anything. Okay. So let's get our cart from the session, because now we have it. Session get cart, and we want a request here. Request, okay, and we use the cart add item, and the IDE doesn't know what it is because we need to tell him. Okay, so add item. So we want a name. So we use request input name, and I know we should use some validation here and not just put the values directly from the request, but that's for the sake of simplicity. For this example, it will work well. So let's add another input for the code, and then to another for the quantity and for the price. Okay, now it should work. Let's go back to our test and see what happens. Okay, it worked. So it returns basically an OK, but we want to assert that our cart has our data. So let's do cart session, get it from the session, cart, and let's assert equals that our data is present in the cart get items 0. So let's see if this works. Yeah, it works. So now we ensured that our data is in the cart. So we can post to the endpoint and it will add our data to the cart. So let's do the next thing. let's assert that we can add something to the cart. Let's do a page where we can view what's in our cart. So let's do a test for it. Not this one. So public function test, it can show the cart. Okay, so we want to use a get request. This get like /cart, and we want to assert it returns the OK. Let's run this. Obviously, it's failing because we don't have anything. So let's go to the routes. Let's create another route. Route get cart. And we want to use the same controller, cart controller class, and we want to use index method, for example. Let's go to our cart controller and create that index method. Okay, so public function index. We can expect a request class here as well. And that's it. That will make our test pass if everything goes right. Yeah, that's right. Our test works. It doesn't do, again, anything, but it returns an OK response, so it doesn't error out. So let's add some new things to our controller test. We will assert that it returns an OK, but we will also assert that we see, for example, keyword name, okay, in the HTML, and now it fails because it doesn't have any name, because it doesn't return basically anything. So we create view in a new folder. Let's call it cart and create a new PHP file. Let's call it index.blade.php. Okay, we don't need this. So basically HTML. We will have a table here. Let's go to our controller, return our view, return view cart.index. Okay, and in our view, we will create a table where in the head, we have row, we have head elements, and we have the name, we have the code, we have the quantity, and we have the price here. Okay, right, that's good. Okay, now let's run our test. Now our test is happy. It sees the name, but it still don't show the cart. So let's modify the test and add some more stuff to it. So we will create a new cart. This one. We add it to the session. Session put cart. So cart. And let's copy something from our other test. So let's add something to our cart. Okay, so now we have pizza. So it still should work. It still works, but let's assert another thing. Let's assert that we see pizza as well, because we want to see it in the list. And if you run our test, it fails because actually the code doesn't do anything, just show a plain HTML for now. So let's implement this one. So here we want a cart to retrieve it from the session. Get cart, and let's pass that cart to our view, right? And to pass it cart is our cart. Okay, let's go to the view and do the actual work. So we create body here, we create a for each, use the cart get items method as item, and do and for each, and here we can do row and TD, basically item name, code, quantity, price, code, quantity, okay, and price. Okay, let's see if our test is happy now. Yes, it is. So one more thing, bear with me. That's the last thing that we do today. Is let's make sure that we will have a form where we can actually add something to our cart. So we will do a test for it. Test it shows the cart add form. So we do what we usually, we want to get request, get cart. It should go to the cart add method, and we assert that we get an OK response here. If we run this test, we will have a problem because the response status code we expected is 200, but we received 405. That's what it means, that we have a route which corresponds to this path, but it expects to be paused. So let's create another route and add the same thing just with the get, and we will not use store method. Let's do an add method. So basically we implement this here, public function add, and this will have a request again, and it will return view. Basically we can do this because our test will be happy about it. That's fine. We get 200 response, all good. So that's not all good. So let's assert something else. Let's assert C again a name, because the name will be in the form, or we can assert form as well. It doesn't contain name, or we can do it like form. Okay, let's stick with the name. So let's create add blade. We will have the HTML. We don't need the table anymore. We want to create a form here. The action is gonna be cart slash add. Methods gonna be post. So let's do a label, name, input, type text. That's fine. Name should be name. And let's duplicate this a couple of times. Okay, so then we will do code. we will do quantity. And we will do price. Okay. And not forget the cross-site request, because it will not work otherwise. So let's see what our test says now. Okay. Something's not right. Yeah, something's not right. Yes, that's correct, because we want to return this view. Return view cart that add. Right? Okay. Let's see what's happened now. Now it passes. Let's add a submit button to our form. Submit. Add. Okay. Let's see. Our test suite runs okay. Let's run it again. All the tests. We have 4 tests, 8 assertions, and it seems to be working. Okay. Now let's see if it really works or not. So let's exit the presentation mode. Okay, here is our project. So let's see, cart/add. It shows something. Let's see. We want to add the pizza. 1,000 dinars. Okay, it's something. Let's see if it's in the cart. It seems so. So what we see now, here we will expect when we refresh that not resubmit the form, right? We will expect a redirect here after adding something to the cart, after basically a post request. So let's do this. Go back to our code. And let's do the presentation mode again. So let's change our test. It can add items to cart. We don't assert OK here. We assert redirect. And we assert to be redirected to the /cart to see what we added to the cart. And if we run this test, it fails again. So let's make it pass. We go to our store method, and here we will return a redirect to /cart. Okay, let's see what our test says. Looks fine. Let's see what the real world says. So I want to add another. Let's add some beer. 1 beer, 150 dinars. And yeah, we got redirected and we see the items in the cart. So we can, if we want, we can just add, just for fun, we can add the total here to the end. So after the for each, we can add another tr td with the cost span of 3. And we can say total td cart get total. So let's see what we done here. And it looks correct. So we can see we did the whole development of the cart class itself and basically all the endpoints without even touching the browser. At the end, we check the browser if it works, and we should, or we could do like an end-to-end test, a browser test, which does this for us. But basically, we didn't have to fill this form out like how many times? Like 10 times in the development. And now we have the test which does that for us, and we can run this test over and over again as many times as we want. So let's just return to our presentation, just some short things. But Laravel provides us additionally, but pure PHPUnit doesn't. It has built-in mocking for facades. For example, for mail, you can use mail fake, you can use storage fake, event fake, queue fake. So basically, you can assert that the mail is sent without actually sending them. You can assert that the file is saved to the storage, but not saving it actually. You can assert that an event is fired, but not firing the actual event. So it has, as we saw already, it has a built-in HTTP test. It has a get, post, put, and it has also methods to simulate AJAX requests like post.json or get.json. And it provides us service container. Why it's important? It's important because if you use the service container to create your classes, you can use mocking. You can basically mock out some methods of those classes or even just replace those classes with some fake ones. And that way you can test just your own code. For example, if you use some client which does some API requests and it's within your class, but you want to test your class, but don't want to do real requests even to the sandbox, to the API, then you can mock out your client and just assert that it gives you some response, and you can test your code against that response. So then you can be sure that if that API gives you that same response, then it will work as you expected. But be careful with testing. We have some common pitfalls. Check the settings in a Laravel application in the .env.testing. For example, don't send out email to real users from a test suite. It will be bad. No one's going to do that. Use the service container, as I mentioned, because it will allow you to mock those objects. Because if you use the new keyword, then you will not be able to mock your class because it's hard-coded that it should be that class. So expect a class or an interface as an argument in the built-in classes, or as we did in our example, use the app helper to make the service container create the class for us. And avoid random values when initializing your test suite. For example, you want to initialize some database data, some table data, you want to initialize some objects that you want to use in your test, and you add some random values here, and your test will sometimes work, sometimes don't. So it will cause some random failures and some random headaches for the developers as well. So avoid randomness in the test setup as much as possible. So we have some further resources here. Obviously, the PHPUnit documentation. The Laravel documentation also has a part for the testing. I wrote a blog post which should go out soon after this meetup, and I wrote down the same example with the pure PHP project there, so you can check it out. And the examples are up on my GitHub, and those are public, so you can check those out if you want. And that would be mostly it. Any questions? No? All right, then thank you and enjoy the rest of the meetup. Right, so thanks for our watchers on YouTube, and sorry for turning it on late, but hope you enjoyed it, and we will have some pizza here. Unfortunately, you will not. Yeah, probably next time. Okay, I will stop the stream. Bye.